This is how Swede speaks.
A few weeks ago, I questioned whether Sweden's elections can be trusted in a video called "Can Sweden's elections be trusted?" A few days ago, Sweden had its general election, which includes the national, regional and local elections. Observers from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and some other organizations sent election observers to Sweden. Was there election fraud in Sweden? I'm in Sweden, and that's what we will be talking about today. But before we do that, let me first say this. This is my day job. I am very grateful to my financial supporters. Thank you all very much for your support, because the support is necessary and much appreciated. And if you like what I do, if you think what I do is important, and if you want me to continue doing this, please consider sending me $1 or $2, or 10, or 100, or becoming a monthly supporter through Patreon. That's all greatly appreciated. For information about how to donate, take a look at the box below this video, or take a look at swedespeaks.com. Also, if you're not a subscriber yet, please subscribe. I recently reached 5,000 subscribers, so a big thank you to each and every one of my subscribers. I want to move on further, so please tell your friends and family about this channel. And if you have a business and want to discuss sponsorships, feel free to contact me. My email address is in the box below. Now, let's get started. As I said, was there election fraud in Sweden? The short answer is yes. The question isn't if there was election fraud, but of which kind and to which extent. Michael Ostrup Jensen, a Danish politician who observed the election in Malmö, Sweden, stated in a Facebook video that the Swedish election wasn't a democratic election. He reacted to the fact that outside of the polling stations there are party soldiers who attack you with their respective parties' election lists. You see, in Sweden, each party have their own list. Here's one of them. Here are a few others. And that's a peculiarity that Sweden shares with Norway. He also reacted to the fact that once you are inside the polling station, all these lists are displayed publicly, and you pick a list in public before you cast your vote. The casting of the vote is in private, behind the screen, but you pick your vote list in public anyway. In theory, you can pick several lists. However, most people do not, and the few who do will actually raise suspicions by doing so. Maybe he or she is going to vote for the Sweden Democrats, or the Moderates, or Alternative for Sweden, or some other party that people don't like. Thus, there is no real privacy when it comes to who you vote for. And here, Sweden is truly different. Norway uses the same kind of election lists, but in Norway all the lists are behind the screen and nobody can see which list you pick. In Denmark and the United States, ballot papers are used, where all the different parties and candidates are listed on the same paper, and you pick one or a few of them. A similar system in Sweden would remove another kind of election fraud that is going on. The fact that sometimes some election lists are placed away from other ones. There has been reports of Sweden Democrats lists, for instance, being placed in different locations than the rest of the lists, or Sweden Democrats lists not being available. In Rönninge, south of Stockholm, there were no lists from Alternative for Sweden. As much as I personally am skeptic of the AFS, that's still not okay. AFS lists were later found on the streets of Rönninge. Michael Ostrup Jensen said that he will raise the issue of Sweden's election system in the next European Council meeting. Swedes should be very grateful for this, because Sweden's election system is a fraudster's dream. There were reports of family voting and clan voting. In many cases, men followed their wives behind the screen where you put your vote in an envelope, apparently to make sure that their wives voted for the right party. In other cases, party names were loudly declared in polling stations to people to make sure that they voted for the right party. In general, people of non-Western background, so-called clan voting. And there is more. The Swedish postal carrier PostNord had problems with delivering pre-votes in time. In some constituencies, votes for the municipal council were mistaken for votes for parliament, which influenced the number of seats in parliament for specific parties, at least in the preliminary count. Yeah, did I tell you that votes are counted and registered manually in Sweden? As I said, the system is a fraudster's dream. And there is still more. In some cases, people were denied to vote because someone else already voted in their place, claiming their identity. You see, to vote in Sweden, you don't really need to prove your identity. It is enough if someone else who can prove his or her identity testifies that you are who you say you are. So yes, the Swedish election was fraudulent. And you know, I haven't even yet mentioned the fact that the Sweden Democrats were doing good in the beginning of the counting of votes, when they started to count votes at 8 p.m. in Sweden on Sunday, when they closed the polling stations. The Sweden Democrats were at 24%. Then the website of the Swedish election authority, Valmyndigheten, val.se, crashed. And suddenly, the Sweden Democrats started dropping, and then they stayed at 17% for the rest of the night. At the same time, the Green Party went from 3%, which would have excluded them from seats in parliament, to a little over 4%, giving them seats in parliament, and these numbers stayed stable for the rest of the night. Some people argue that the early districts counted could have been in the south of Sweden, in Skåne, where the Sweden Democrats are very popular. Well, that sounds valid. If it wasn't for the fact that some of the early constituencies were small constituencies in the north of Sweden, places where the left traditionally is strong. So did something fishy happen here? Honestly, I don't know. Draw your own conclusions. By the way, the Swedish election authority is now doing the final count of votes, saying that the result will be available on Friday, September 14th, or later. According to the preliminary numbers, the Social Democrats got a much better result than expected, 28.3%, making them the largest party. This surprised me, but let me say this. In the Swedish no-go zones, the Social Democrats got really good numbers, over 70% in some of them. So instead of calling them no-go zones, maybe I should start calling them the Social Democratic zones. I can't help but to think that recent Swedish citizens living in these areas have went to the polling stations to support the Social Democrats and stop the Sweden Democrats. According to a Norwegian poll, 80% of Muslim immigrants support the left. I see no reason to think that Sweden would be any different. So I understand that the political left supports Islamic immigration, at least in the short run. Why the so-called right supports Islamic immigration in Sweden, that's a mystery. And also, to become a Swedish citizen, you don't need to prove any language skills in Swedish or show any knowledge of Swedish society. So what I do know is that Sweden needs a different election system. In my opinion, Sweden should do like in Denmark or the United States, where there is one ballot paper, as I said, with all parties and candidates listed on it. Or as in Finland, where people vote for individual candidates and every candidate has a number that you write on the ballot paper. And please, no more manual counts and registrations of votes. Please! Election workers in Sweden have in many cases been political activists. The votes needs to be counted by machines. Perhaps the election count system should be based in a free country, like Estonia or the United States. And that's what I have to say about this right now. As I said in the beginning of this video, this is my day job, and I would like to thank all my supporters. And if you like what I do, if you think what I do is important and deserves some support, feel free to send me $1 or $2 or 10 or 100. That's always greatly appreciated. Also, subscribe, like and comment, and keep us here at Swede Studios in your prayers. You might have noticed that I don't include any references now. That is due to new EU legislation, the so-called link tax. If you want to know where I got my information, feel free to send me an email. So, until next time, have a nice day and God bless.